Hey guys, welcome back to Based MMA. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis, and I'm also going to be providing a prediction for this fight. This fight is so good in my opinion, guys, that I had to make a separate video because I absolutely love this fight. I absolutely love that the UFC decided to make this fight. It's a fight that I didn't really see coming, to be honest. I'm pretty sure you guys didn't see it coming either. Because I mean, Dustin Poirier, he's a staple of the lightweight division. Benoit Saint Denis is a young prospect coming up. He barely became ranked after his win against Matt Frevola. And Dustin Poirier, like I said, he's a staple of the lightweight division. He's a big money fight now in the UFC. So when the UFC announced this fight, I was like, oh my God, I never thought about this fight, but I love it. I love it. I truly do love it. Now, it's a very interesting fight for many reasons. Because let's start off with Dustin Poirier. I mean, Dustin Poirier, he's been a staple of the lightweight division. He's a guy that's coming off a knockout loss. He is 35 years old. Definitely at the end of his career, I would say. He probably has 2-3 more fights in the lightweight division. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening in this fight. But Dustin Poirier is definitely not a young prospect. Like I said, he's fought the who's who. He's fought Max Holloway. He's fought Dan Hooker. He's fought Khabib. He's fought Eddie Alvarez. He's fought Justin Gaethje twice. He's fought Conor McGregor 3 times. So he's fought the who's who in the lightweight division. But, Benoit Saint Denis definitely doesn't have the same type of names on his resume. I mean, he's on a 5-fight win streak, fighting guys like Gabriel Miranda, Thiago Moises. So he definitely doesn't have the names of somebody like Dustin Poirier. So the experience definitely goes to Dustin Poirier. But make no mistake, Benoit Saint Denis has all the skills to be a top lightweight. If not now, even if he loses this fight, maybe he's not a top lightweight right now, but he's definitely going to be a top lightweight later because this guy is only 28 years old. And even in his fight, let's talk about Benoit. I mean, he lost, I believe, in 2021 against this guy named Dos Santos, and I just rewatched that fight, and he lost that fight. I mean, Dos Santos put an absolute beating on Benoit Saint Denis, and he was not able to knock out Benoit Saint Denis. And in that second round, I was so impressed by how durable Benoit was. I was like, any other fighter would have been unconscious on the floor, already finished, but Benoit was just taking the punishment, and it just shows you that Benoit is an absolute warrior. Dustin Poirier is also an absolute warrior. I mean, Dustin is the type of fighter to bite down in his mouthpiece and just go to war. And even if the fight is not necessarily going his way, he knows how to win fights. He has good fight IQ. He knows how to push through adversity. And that's why I love this fight so much, because this fight is truly about two fighters. Like, I know that that might sound silly because you're like, okay, every fight is two fighters. But when I think about this matchup, I mean, Dustin Poirier is your fighter's fighter, and Benoit is that thing as well. I mean, Benoit isn't going to go out of there easily. Like, this is a guy that loves to be in a war. Dustin loves to be in a war. That's where he tends to strive. Dustin Poirier is not a fighter that necessarily dominates his fight. I mean, when was the last time that Dustin Poirier dominated a fight? I guess you could say the Conor McGregor trilogy, because even that rematch, Conor McGregor had a pretty good first round. The fight against Michael Chandler was also pretty competitive. Michael Chandler did kind of hurt him in that first round, but then Dustin Poirier landed a pretty good counter. I gave the first round of that fight to Poirier. Then the second round, Michael Chandler actually used his brain for once and actually attempted a takedown and got it, was able to control Dustin Poirier in that second round. Fight was 1-1 going into the third round. Dustin Poirier is able to get the submission, ends up winning that fight. A very competitive fight. Like I said, the Dan Hooker fight was pretty competitive. I gave him 3 rounds to 2. Amazing fight. I guess you could say he kind of dominated maybe Max Holloway, but Dustin Poirier, like, he's in scraps. This guy's the definition of being in a scrap. And Benoit Saint Denis, I think, has had a little bit more dominant performances, even though, like I said, he hasn't fought the who's who in the lightweight division. I mean, he put an incredible performance against Matt Frevola, where, he used his grappling a little bit in that fight, was able to get side control, got back to his feet. Matt Frevola was moving around the cage, landed an amazing head kick. So Benoit Saint Denis has a lot of power on the feet, very explosive, really good body kicks, really good head kicks, really good distance management, has really good submission skills. I mean, he submitted Ismael Bonfim last July in a fight where he was a pretty good underdog in. So Benoit Saint Denis is a very, very well-rounded fighter. While Dustin, I wouldn't really describe Dustin as somebody who's very well-rounded. Like, yes, he has good BJJ skills. He has really good striking, but his grappling leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, Dustin Poirier is not an amazing grappler. Maybe it's because of his hips and the fact that he's built like SpongeBob. But Dustin Poirier is not a guy that you would describe as a very well-rounded fighter. He's a very good striker, very durable guy, a fighter's fighter, but not a guy that I would describe as being very well-rounded. Now, like I said, Dustin Poirier is a bit older in his career. He is coming off a knockout loss, but unlike Volkanovski, he's actually taking some time off because that fight was in last July. This fight is going to take place in March. So he's had enough time, in my opinion, to fully recover from that knockout loss. The thing is that he's also older in his career, and I just feel like Dustin Poirier doesn't have the momentum of someone like Benoit Saint Denis. He's kind of been win one, lose one, win two, lose one. And that's kind of how Dustin Poirier has been for the majority of his career. I mean, think about it. He just lost to Justin Gaethje. Prior to that, he beat Michael Chandler. Prior to that, he lost to Charles Oliveira. Then he beat Conor McGregor twice in those big money fights. He did beat Dan Hooker. And then before that, he lost against Khabib Nurmagomedov. So Dustin Poirier, he's lost to the big guys. He's lost to the very well-rounded fighters, which I'm going to get into. He lost against Charles Oliveira, a fight where he had a pretty good first round in. He lost against Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, there's no shame in losing to Khabib. I mean, Khabib is just a monster, just a different animal in the lightweight division. But like I said, Dustin Poirier definitely has the experience going into this fight. But make no mistake, Benoit Saint Denis has all the skills to be a top lightweight. And even if he loses this fight, in my opinion, Benoit's still going to be a top lightweight in the future. It's just that, this might be a big step up in competition, but even though some people that are picking Dustin Poirier are saying that, oh, this is too much of a step up for Benoit, when you look at Benoit's skills objectively, the guy could be a very bad stylistic matchup for Poirier. And I'm going to get into that because if you look at Dustin Poirier's losses, the guys that he ends up losing to, typically, besides this Justin Gaethje loss, right? He typically ends up losing to very well-rounded fighters. He ended up losing against Charles Oliveira, a very well-rounded fighter, a guy that he had to be scared of if he went to the ground. You know what I'm saying? That second round, he didn't want to get back to his feet because he didn't want to give the opportunity to Charles Oliveira to submit him because he had learned from that Khabib fight. And same with Khabib, like, he struggles with guys that have elite grappling, and even somebody like Michael Chandler who has low fight IQ. Michael Chandler had a lot of success when he ended up using his grappling. Like, it was actually pretty effective. And someone like Benoit Saint Denis, who is very dangerous on the feet, definitely not a better technical striker than Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier definitely has better hands, better boxing. But Benoit Saint Denis has a lot of power, really good body kicks, really good head kicks, really good movement, really good distance management, really good pressure, really good cardio. Dustin Poirier has pretty good timing, pretty good distance as well, very precise with his strikes, really nasty straight left hands and right hooks. Both of these guys are southpaws. But I think that even if Benoit isn't necessarily the better striker, I still think that he can hang around with Dustin Poirier on the feet. And if he starts having trouble on the feet, what do you think Benoit's going to do? He's going to shoot for a double leg takedown, and he's most likely going to get it. And like I said, this guy has elite submission skills as well. And Dustin is going to need to be thinking about that. He's going to need to be thinking about the fact that, this guy might take me down to the mat. And I think the fact that Dustin Poirier has to worry about that, plus he has to worry about the fact that he just got knocked out, I just think that I have to pick Benoit Saint Denis to end up winning this fight because he has more tools on the feet. He has more ways to win. He actually has momentum. He's a younger fighter. I think he probably has a better chin than Dustin Poirier now. I have to go with Benoit, guys. I have to go with Benoit. And like I said, even though I think Dustin Poirier has more experience, and make no mistake, if Dustin Poirier, if not Dustin Poirier, if Benoit Saint Denis starts to get sloppy on the feet, Dustin Poirier will capitalize on that because Dustin Poirier has really good accuracy, really good precision, really good timing, and he will time Benoit Saint Denis if he starts to get sloppy, if he starts to gas out. And I could see Dustin Poirier winning this fight if Benoit starts to get a bit sloppy on the feet, he starts to gas out. Dustin Poirier is going to step on the gas and he's going to unload with combinations, kind of how he unloaded against Conor McGregor in that rematch. So Dustin Poirier, when you're hurt, he's a very dangerous fighter. You know what I'm saying? Dustin Poirier doesn't necessarily have one punch knockout power, but he does overwhelm you with volume, has really good boxing, really good inside boxing. And if Benoit starts to gas out and be very sloppy on the feet, I could see a scenario where Dustin Poirier ends up capitalizing on that and beating Benoit Saint Denis. The problem, like I said, is that I think Benoit's too durable. I think he's too durable, and like the fact that he has the elite grappling in his back pocket, I think it just makes it for like a really bad combination. It makes it a really bad stylistic matchup for Dustin Poirier under these circumstances. So I have to go with Benoit Saint Denis to end up winning this fight. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I absolutely love this fight. I love that the UFC made this fight. You know, it's not often that we get a fight that we really didn't see coming, and then when once you get it, you're like, wow, like this is actually pretty good matchmaking. So I absolutely love this fight. I love Dustin Poirier. I'm a big fan of Benoit Saint Denis. I can't wait to see what happens. But when I have to pick someone to win this fight, I just have to go with a younger fighter. I have to go with a more well-rounded fighter. And Dustin Poirier, I just think he's kind of at the end of his career. I wouldn't really say that he's washed necessarily, but I think he's a fighter that has kind of been thinking about the money fights, the big fights. You know, I thought maybe he was going to fight a Colby Covington or Gilbert Burns or Nate Diaz, somebody that is not, you know, a young killer that has a pretty big name. That's kind of the fights that I would, that was kind of those were kind of the fights that I was thinking that Dustin Poirier was going to take rather than Benoit Saint Denis. And I mean, I feel like Dustin Poirier doesn't really have a lot to gain from this fight, if we're being honest, because if Dustin ends up winning this fight, like he's not going to fight for the title. I don't really see him being in a number one contender bout. And if Benoit ends up winning this fight, he has a lot to gain because he's probably going to need one more win and then fight for the title. You know what I'm saying? So this is kind of a weird fight for Dustin to take, which is very respectable because he knows like, man, I really don't have a lot to gain from this fight, but it's a very intriguing fight. It's a fight that I'm sure is motivating him. He knows how dangerous Benoit is. And Benoit is also very motivated because if you end up getting a win over Dustin Poirier, that's a big name on your resume. And you could potentially fight for a title with one more win. So it's a, you know, a very high risk, low reward fight for Dustin Poirier. And Benoit has everything to gain. And in my opinion, nothing to lose, because if he ends up losing this fight, okay, you lost to Dustin Poirier. It was too big of a step up in competition. You know, let's just give you a fighter in the 10 to 15 range, 10 to 15 ranked. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like Benoit doesn't really have a lot to lose if he loses this fight, which makes him very dangerous in my opinion. It makes it very dangerous. And like I said, I just think it's a very bad stylistic fight for Dustin Poirier. I do think Dustin Poirier has the better hands, but I mean, we've said that. I mean, Dustin Poirier has better hands than Charles Oliveira, better hands than Michael Chandler. And we saw that those guys, when they end up using their grappling, they gave Dustin Poirier a lot of problems. And I just think that Benoit Saint Denis, with his strength, with his elite grappling, with his elite submission skills, with all those momentum, the fact that he's so young, it's just a bad combination for Poirier, guys. So let me know what you guys think. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.